What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Thank you as always for tuning in. It's been about a week since the track day and I haven't really done anything. That being said, there is a bit to do. There's some damage to go over, some little things I gotta fix. So we're gonna jump straight into that. But before we do, I wanna give this thing a bath because man, it is dirty. All right, with the car all cleaned up, I'm gonna get this thing on jack stand so we can get under it and take a better look at some of the damage I did to the rear end here. So starting in the back, the most obvious damage is the bumper. So the rear bumper took a bit of a beating. If you guys remember from the track day, it kind of tore off from this corner, which ended up tearing it there. It's got a crease in it there. It tore at the top there. And because the exhaust got smashed and I rebent it, it ended up burning the bumper there. And this is where we backed it into the tire wall, so it got a little dented there. But really, all of that's just cosmetic. Doesn't really matter too much. It's not like this car was perfect to begin with. That being said, I probably am gonna cut the bumper, do like a pretty high cut level all the way across, and that will get rid of most of the damage. So I might do that in this video or maybe in the next one. We'll see. So looking under the car here, obviously the exhaust got pretty mangled. It's really not that bad. Let me see if I can get you guys under here. So that's where most of the damage is at. You can see a nice little kink in that and a little dent right there, but nothing too bad. So the damage to the exhaust really isn't that big of a deal. At the end of the day, this is still a stock exhaust with a fence post welded to the end of it. So I'm not gonna cry about it. I was already planning on doing some sort of aftermarket exhaust. That being said, seeing the way this got mangled, just from a pretty mellow like spin into the dirt, makes me think that whatever exhaust I do end up getting, I might cut like right at the rear axles instead of having it come all the way out, just because it's gonna leave a lot less room for things to get damaged in the future. So something to think about for sure. The other bit of damage under here is this Diff Brace, which I'm not super happy about, but I also don't think it's gonna cause any issues. You can see right here, it's definitely not straight anymore. And it actually bent. You can see the kink in the metal right here, kind of dips in right there. Like I said, I don't think it really affects anything. I think it's still bracing the diff. It's probably gonna be just as strong. It just looks a bit goofy now. It doesn't look like it moved the diff. Obviously the diff is solid mounted up there, so I can't imagine that moved or anything. Seems okay, just looks a bit goofy. Now this is probably the worst of it all, and this damage actually wasn't even caused at the track, but you'll notice there's a little gap right here where the subframe meets the actual chassis. Now, if you remember, I put those solid subframe bushings in a while ago. I had the subframe out of this thing. Now, when I put them back in, that nut on that big stud that holds the subframe up kind of got stripped. It tightened, but it didn't tighten all the way, and I didn't really like the way it felt, but it seemed like it tightened enough, and the subframe was sandwiched right up against the frame the way it's supposed to be. Now, after the track day, it's come down a little bit. You can see that little gap there, and while I don't think the subframe is gonna come flying out of the car and cause any crazy damage, it's definitely not confidence inspiring knowing that one of the bolts on your subframe is not tight enough. Now that being said, it's a huge job. I don't really want to have to drop the subframe again, and then I'm going to have to chase those threads with a die and clean the threads up and get a new bolt. Kind of a hassle, but it is something I'm going to have to do at some point, especially if I'm going to be driving this thing as hard as I was. I do want it to be solid, so not a job I'm going to jump into right away, but it's something I'll have to get to one of these days. Some other damage I didn't even realize under this corner of the bumper here is a tow hook that is now pretty bent. And I don't actually know what this like metal stuff is. This, like, it's just thin sheet metal. It's bent. Yeah, so I don't know what that is. I'm gonna pull the rear bumper off, get a better look at some of that stuff and see what of it I can just remove, because a lot of it looks pretty messed up. I think it's safe to say she's seen better days. All right, with the bumper off, I took off all that metal and plastic that was down there. I also took out the factory crash bar, which is this over here, the supports for it, all the hardware for it. Good bit of extra weight off the back of this car. Now, personally, as a drift car, I don't think you need the factory crash bar. And my thought behind that is, especially if you're running a track that has a lot of walls or like cement barriers or things that you're gonna get the back end close to, if you do hit a wall or anything and that crash bar is on, you gotta remember that crash bar ties into your frame rails. So if you kiss a wall with that, it's gonna kick your frame rails off to one side. You're gonna cause a lot more damage than if you didn't have it and you just end up crumpling a quarter panel or something like that, because then the frame rails aren't tied together. That's my thought behind it. Because of that, I've never ran a rear crash bar on any of my drift cars. Plus it saves a bit of weight. Now, obviously I wouldn't recommend that if it's your daily, you're driving the thing around every day, you wouldn't want to get rear-ended without one of those, end up with someone's bumper on the back side of your head. That wouldn't be good. I'm gonna keep working on this thing. I'll probably pull the exhaust off next so we can get that thing cleaned up as well. All right, with the exhaust off the car, I can mock the rear bumper up and see how I want to cut that. Got the bumper taped off. Gonna give this thing the chop. Now, the cutoff wheel is no precision instrument, and even if it was, I'm not a very precise wielder, but I have to give myself a pat on the back because this bumper turned out pretty sick. Let me show you. Pretty much a race car now. Not only does it look cool, but with that big of a cut, I pretty much got all the damage off, so it doesn't even look crashed anymore. All right, with the bumper done, I'm gonna turn my attention to the exhaust. All right, got the exhaust cut, measured, marked, ready to weld. All right, the exhaust is on. You can see now it ends just past the rear subframe. So I have a lot less exhaust to get snagged if I do end up off track or in a wall or anything like that. And with that, we've got the exhaust wrapped up. I am gonna leave it off the car for now because, like you saw earlier, I do have to drop the subframe at some point. And while it's not gonna happen in this video, it may happen in the next. So the next thing I have to turn my attention to is an oil leak that this thing developed at the track. Now, at the track, I had a few ideas of what it could have been, but I never really got it dialed down to one specific thing. And since then, it really hasn't been leaking a lot. It's just been a little drip here and there, but at the track, it was kind of a lot. So I'm gonna dive into it and see if I could find anything. So if we climb under the car here, I pressure washed it earlier, so it's not as bad as it was. But there, at the track, there was oil running down the side of the engine, only on this side. You can still see there's some residue. I guess it's kind of hard to see, but there's some on that heat shield for the exhaust. There's quite a bit on the subframe. You can see there's some actually like dripping down there, and it actually runs all the way back down to the frame rail. So none of this was covered in oil, and you can see that side is perfectly dry. So it is isolated just to this side of the engine. And like I said, it's definitely coming from the top. Now, I have two ideas here. The first idea is that it's actually the dipstick itself. There's no real way to get in here. So the dipstick has a little rubber seal on the top of it. And when you pull it out, the rubber seal on this one's missing about half. So that could definitely be a leak. Whether it is this leak, I'm not 100% sure. The other thing, and the more likely thing, is the valve cover gasket on this side. Now, when I changed the valve cover gaskets, I do remember having some trouble with one of them. I don't remember which side it was, but it was hard to get it positioned perfectly and to seat perfectly. So I'm thinking I may have just like pinched the gasket kind of sideways. Maybe it's not sealing properly, and it really wasn't an issue until I was actually at the track, you know, pushing this thing. So I'm gonna order a new valve cover gasket. I actually already ordered a new dipstick, I'll replace those two parts and hopefully it should fix it. All right, we're making some serious progress. Exhaust is fixed, rear bumper is fixed, did some weight reduction on the back, got the leak diagnosed. I just have to order some parts for that. One more bit of damage I have to show you just because it's hilarious. Passenger door here. There used to be a handle there. Yes, that handle did break completely off the door. During one of the ride-alongs, my passenger just looks over at me and is holding the handle in his hand. I think it had come loose throughout the day. I was pretty much giving ride-alongs the entire day, and it was so much fun. I don't mind that the handle ripped off. And that's gonna be a wrap on today's video. Pretty happy with the progress I made. Got a good amount of stuff checked off the list, and I'm happy to have diagnosed that oil leak. At least I think I did. We'll see when those parts show up. Like I said in the next video, I'm probably gonna tackle that job of dropping the subframe. I don't really want to, but I've got to. And I also have some other goodies to go in while I'm down there, so get excited for that one. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.